The air in the garage was thick with the smell of motor oil and something else, something metallic, sharp. It was a smell I'd become intimately familiar with over the past few years, a smell that clung to my clothes, my skin, my memories. My name is Kai, and I was 17, and tonight I was going to kill my father. He was a monster cloaked in human skin. A charming, charismatic monster, but a monster nonetheless. Behind the facade of the loving father lurked a predator. His love was conditional, a weapon used to manipulate and control. His discipline was brutal, a twisted expression of his own internal demons. My mother, a fragile bird trapped in a gilded cage, had endured years of his abuse. I had endured it with her. We were prisoners in our own home, walking on eggshells, always anticipating the next explosion. Tonight, the cage was going to break. I had studied his routines, his habits, his weaknesses. I knew when he would be vulnerable, when his guard would be down. Tonight was the night. He was in the garage, tinkering with his prized motorcycle, a vintage Harley-Davidson that he loved more than his own family. The rhythmic clang of his tools against metal echoed in the confined space, a macabre soundtrack to my thoughts. I walked in, my heart pounding in my chest, but my hands steady. I carried a duffel bag, the weight of its contents pressing against my leg. He didn't look up. "What do you want, Kai?" he grunted, his voice rough. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'm taking Mom with me." He chuckled, a low, menacing sound. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "You belong here, with me." He turned, his eyes narrowing. He saw the duffel bag. He saw the look in my eyes. He knew. "What's in the bag?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. I didn't answer. I reached into the bag and pulled out the axe. It was a heavy, double-headed axe, the kind used for splitting logs. I had sharpened it meticulously, the blade gleaming under the fluorescent garage lights. His eyes widened, fear flickering in their depths. He took a step back, his hand reaching for a wrench on the workbench. "You wouldn't," he whispered. I raised the axe. "I would," I said. He lunged, the wrench a clumsy weapon against the honed steel of the axe. I sidestepped his attack, the axe whistling through the air. It connected with his shoulder with a sickening thud. He screamed, a high-pitched, animalistic sound. He stumbled, clutching at his wound. I didn't give him a chance to recover. I swung the axe again, this time aiming for his neck. The blade sliced through the air, a blur of motion. There was a sickening crack, followed by a wet, heavy thud. His head, severed from his body, rolled across the concrete floor, his eyes wide and unseeing. His body crumpled to the ground, a grotesque heap. I stood there, the axe dripping with blood, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence in the garage was deafening. The only sound was the drip, drip, drip of blood on the concrete. I looked down at his head, his face frozen in a mask of terror. I felt nothing, just a hollow emptiness. The rage that had fueled my actions had vanished, leaving behind a cold, desolate void. I dropped the axe, I walked over to his body and knelt down beside it. I closed his eyes. Then, I went inside and told my mother it was over. The aftermath was messy. The police came, their faces grim. They asked questions, their voices hard. I told them everything, the words coming out in a flat, emotionless monotone. My mother corroborated my story, her voice trembling but firm. They took me away. I spent the next few months in a juvenile detention center, a cold, sterile place filled with broken kids and broken dreams. I was a parasite, a monster in the eyes of society. But I didn't care. I had freed my mother. I had broken the cage, and in the twisted logic of my world, that made me free. The blood on my hands was a permanent stain, a dark reminder of the violence I had committed. But it was also a symbol of my liberation, a testament to the night I killed my father. It was a secret I would carry with me forever, a dark, bloody crown.